In this video, I'm going to be talking about resurrection in D&D and how the rules as written kind of suck and how to fix them. So let's get started. The reason I think that the rules currently with resurrection in D&D kind of suck is that death should be a very big deal. That is the end of that character's story. It should be a significant moment where the players recognize the sacrifices that are being made by that character and their heroic ending. And with death being the big thing, potentially a big sacrifice or a heroic ending, the resurrection of that character should also be a big deal and feel significant. So with the current system, the players know that they can resurrect any of the characters at any point and it's guaranteed to work. So there isn't as much weight behind it, and players might take a lot more risks or not care as much knowing that their character can be resurrected at any point. With anyone being able to be resurrected at any point, it's kind of just like, why does anybody die in combat? Why is adventuring a dangerous thing? So my fix to this and making death feel bigger and have a larger impact is adding a skill challenge to the resurrection system. I think Matt Mercer does something similar to this, though I don't know his exact rules on this. Now, I don't want to actually stop the players from being resurrected, but I want them to know that there is some risk. And I want them to know in the back of their head that if they die, that might be the end of their character. There is not a guaranteed resurrection. If a player wants to continue their character's story and doesn't want it to end just there, especially if it was an anticlimactic ending, they got killed in just a random encounter, I think that the player should be able to resurrect that character, but it shouldn't just happen. So the system I use is when they go to resurrect a player, that player goes through their death saves and it works the exact same. A 10 and up is a success, a 9 and below is a failure, and first to 3 basically wins. So if you get 3 successes first, then it is successful, the character's back, 3 failures, and they're out, done. There is no retrying. Very similarly to the death saves, with a nat 20, it is still an automatic success, and with a nat 1, it is 2 failures. Now, this gives them roughly a 57% chance at success, a 58, I can't remember the exact number, and I think that is a little bit low. And so what I do is I give the players the ability to try to lower the DC, essentially. So if you run a campaign with 4 people like I usually do, then there will probably be 3 players plus potentially an NPC that might be doing the ritual or whatever it is to resurrect the player. So each character that is a part of the resurrection spell or ritual gets to also make I just have them roll a death saving throw, but it's not really a death saving throw. It's kind of like a resurrection check. But it follows the same mechanics where with a 10 and higher it succeeds, with a 9 and lower it fails, and with a success they lower the DC by 2 for the player and his death saving throws, or that whole series that he's going to go with. For the players helping in the resurrection, you might, instead of just having them roll a d20 and trying to get at least a 10, you might instead have them roll for Arcana or Persuasion or something like that based on how they're assisting in the resurrection. So if you have 3, maybe 4 people that are attempting to resurrect a character, then probably 2 of them will succeed, lowering the DC by 4. So now the character being resurrected, instead of having to hit a 10 and up, they now only have to hit a 6 and up, which gives them a 75% chance for each roll to be successful. The reason that I have them do the full first to 3 successes or 3 failures dictates if it was successful or not is because the more rolls you do, the better chances they have of succeeding, assuming they have better odds of succeeding. The average attempt will be about 75% per roll. So for the entire best of 5, that gives them roughly a 90% chance of success. And if you want very intense rolls, you can change it to just 1, but if you do that, keep in mind there is now that 25% chance or whatever it is that they roll really poorly and their character's dead. And again, with this change, I'm not looking to actually keep characters dead. I just think it's more fun, and most of my players agree that it's more fun if there's something on the line, that they can actually lose their character when they go do something risky. I also make it harder for each consecutive resurrection. So the first one, like I said, there's about a 90% chance of success, but on the next one, I increase that DC by 2. So now when they're going through the resurrection. Now, instead of needing to hit a 10, it is a 12. Again, the other players can still lower that, so you might, instead of getting it down to a 6, they end up getting it down to an 8, but that will still make it harder for more consecutive times. I like increasing it by 2 because I think it's a good number where you know the more your character dies, the harder it's going to be to resurrect them each time. If you go much beyond that, say 5, the second time you're resurrecting them, even with the exact system I use, that is only a 50% chance at success, which is already pretty scary. At that point, you're just flipping a coin. And then the third time they're getting resurrected, very good odds that it will fail. But discuss with your players or figure out what seems best or most fun for you. Something else that you want to keep in mind is how Revivify works with this system. Do they still need to go through the ritual and the skill challenge, or does Revivify just work as normal? Or do you remove Revivify because it's kind of awkward? It's something that you'll want to keep in mind and discuss with your players so that you're all on the same page. Another thing you may consider changing is, as I said, with my group, I generally play with 4 to 5 players, and so I have each person that successfully does the check gets to lower the DC by 2. If you're playing with more players, you might lower that to a 1, or if you're playing with fewer players, you might up that to a 5 potentially. You might also remove all resurrection spells from the game and instead have a ritual or a ceremony that they can perform to try to resurrect someone, and they make sacrifices, and the amount of gold or whatever they donate might change the DC. You also might change the DC to resurrect someone based on how much damage the body has taken, or even if they have a body. These are just a few things to keep in mind when you build this system for your groups. Let me know below if you leave the DC as the standard 10, or if you increase it to start off with to make it a little bit more challenging, or if you change the way that the players are able to do their check. You could also have a nat 1 for everyone trying to help in the resurrection, increase the DC by 2 instead of lowering it by 2, but that might be a little bit mean. I hope that you enjoyed this video and I was able to help you find a more fun and creative way to do resurrections in your campaign. And if so, please give the video a thumbs up and subscribe for more D&D content. And leave a comment below for any videos that you want to see in the future. I do read all of the comments.